as the Democratic Alliance's flag burning advert has set tongues wagging. The party's former leader, Tony Leon, believes the attention should be more on the message behind the ad than just the burning flag. So Leon says South Africans should be focusing on the possible ANC coalition with the EFF and MK party and what that will mean for the country. And in the controversial ad, the DA warns that the country will burn under the ANC-EFF coalition. And now for more on Tony Leon's take on the controversial ad, he joins me now live on Newzroom Afrika. Thank you so much for your time and welcome to Newzroom Afrika once again.
Thanks very much. Good to be with you this evening. Hi.
Now, Mr. Leon, let's get straight to it. The DA's elections advert in which it digitally burns the South African flag has received a lot of criticism. Do you think that criticism is fair?
Well, I guess any criticism in an election campaign is fair comment. Just no doubt as the advert is. What I think is extraordinary, here we are, day 4 or 5 after it was aired. It's had apparently 4 million views. And tonight, really, in something that's reminiscent of P.W. Botha's era when he used to phone up the SABC and order people off air, we have the national state broadcaster declining to flight the advert that the DA was going to pay for, which to me is the most egregious form of censorship and curbing of free speech, because there's nothing illegal about the ad. And let me say, I mean, you know, it's not,
I'm going to stop you. I'm going to stop you right there just for clarity. When you say it's the most egregious form of censorship, what do you mean by that? And what do you mean when you say
exactly
there's nothing wrong with that?
What I say, that for the national state broadcaster, publicly funded, taxpayer funded, to decline to flight an advert with no legal basis for doing so, but some flimsy expression of this public outrage. Well, I'm sure there's some public outrage. There's a lot of public approval. And for the SABC, which is funded, as I repeat, by taxpayers, not by the government, to decide what it's going to flight or not flight when a party is prepared to pay for an advert is, to me, an egregious form of censorship. It has no place in a 30-year-old democracy. It certainly comes from the previous era of apartheid, where the government and the SABC were case of his master's voice. And I mean, the fact that Cyril Ramaphosa says it's treasonous doesn't make it so. And Zizi Kodwa, I noticed, who is the minister, who said he's going to consider legal action. Well, where's the color of his summons? It doesn't exist, because there's no legal basis for a 33-second advert, which, as you say, was a computer-generated image where the flag's burnt at the beginning and then restored at the end. So it's recreated. Well, you can argue about the merits, the taste, whatever, but you can't ban it in a democratic system. And that's what the SABC's done. So, you know, I guess from the DA's point of view, it's achieved more publicity without flighting the ad on the national or state broadcaster than it ever could have imagined. What we don't know, and I certainly indicated that in my column that you referred to, is it going to help? Because the only way you'll know that is on election day. And even then, unless you conduct a reasonably scientific poll and actually ask people who've cast their votes, did the ad influence you one way or the other, we'll actually never know.
All right. So just to bring our viewers up to speed, in news just in, the SABC has informed ICASA of its decision to basically ban or reject the DA's political advert in which they had shown the burning, or as they say, it wasn't a literal definition of the burning of the flag, but nonetheless they've rejected it. And now the DA, former leader, is saying that, well, he doesn't stand for this. So on what basis? You can let us know as the viewer in our poll at Newsroom 405 on our X poll. But if you were still the DA leader, would you have approved these visuals that depict the burning of the South African constitutional flag?
Well, you know, I don't know what the information, I'm not involved in the DA management or leadership, so I've got a sort of helicopter view of 30,000 feet.
But you are aware of what has transpired, and you have full knowledge of the decisions that have been made. If you were the leader, would you have approved of this particular campaign?
I haven't thought about whether I would have approved of it. I think it's deeply controversial, but it might be effective. I mean,
Might be effective in what way? In what way is it effective? Good, bad?
Because we're talking about it 4 days after it was flighted, and it's the dominant topic of conversation across the South African media space. And I think one's got to distinguish, again, I'll go back to my point, between what people are saying on the social media, or even people who call into your show or send you a note, and what the people out there are saying. And we simply don't know their views because we haven't actually asked them. And short as
well, as a matter of fact, we have asked them. We ran a poll this evening from about 6 o'clock in the evening, which has received a lot of responses, which we will engage you on in just a second. But if you are saying what you're saying right now, why is the symbolic burning of a national flag something that is meant to symbolize our unity? Why do you find this acceptable in a democratic dispensation?
Well, I think if you look at the entire 33 seconds, it starts with a virtual burning on a piece of paper, as I could see it, and then ends with the flag being restored. And the message is, if the ANC, the EFF, and the MK form a coalition, and let me just say, and it's another point I made, that this isn't some wild speculation from some fear-mongering machine. This is what the president of COSATU said on a Workers' Day rally in the Western Cape. She said, if it comes to a coalition, we would rather do a deal with the EFF than with the DA. So it's not something that, some fearmonger is. This is actually the ANC's staunchest and most reliable allies said, choose the EFF. And, the EFF is, I don't think it's a left party. I think in the words of one ANC member described, well, it's a proto-fascist party. It's an if, because we don't know the election result, we don't know how the chips are going to fall. If the ANC goes into a deal with the EFF, with the EFF's manifesto and leadership, you can rest assured it's not the flag that's going to burn. The country is going to be pretty quickly destroyed because of EFF policies, which will very quickly overwhelm the ANC, as they tend to do.
On that note, Tony, do you think the burning of the flag will cost the DA votes in the 29 May polls?
I absolutely do not know the answer to that, nor do you, and with great respect, nor the people who are sending opinions back to you in the form of a poll, because, we got 26 million registered voters. And I am in no position to say, do they think it's a good idea? Do they think it's a bad idea? I suspect, and really I am now speculating, that what the DA is trying to do is to say, we are the only alternative to that nightmare or doomsday coalition. And they wanted to grab people's attention. Well, they grabbed their attention, all right. That's why we're talking about it 4 days later.
And as we've indicated that the vote is about the people at the end of the day, so the polls do matter. Now, when one of your predecessors, let's take, for instance, Mmusi Maimane, was still at the helm of the DA, he said his purpose was to ensure a racially equal South Africa. He, of course, left because he achieved that, according to him. And now, from what you've seen, is the DA doing anything to ensure a racially equal South Africa?
Well, I certainly think the principles and the policies of the party are in that direction. You can argue about the tactics used to pursue it. I mean, Mr. Maimane had some very provocative things to say when he was the leader of the DA, I seem to recall, calling out Jacob Zuma in the most egregious terms and calling him a thief and a liar. And maybe he was a thief and a liar, and maybe that was justified. Some people were outraged. I mean, I need to say on this treason thing, the ANC has a very long, but that's the charge against the DA, it's treasonous, which of course it isn't. It's a provocative advert. The ANC, if you go back in time, you called me treasonous. Well, you'd say that's fair game, that's Tony Leon. They called Desmond Tutu treasonous when he criticized Thabo Mbeki. So I think they've rather discounted the concept of treason and they've misused the concept of patriotism when they're in a corner. Now, I am not involved, probably why you got me thinking, in the management or leadership or the campaigning of the DA. I'm giving you a view. And
no, you're not giving me a view, Tony. You're giving me big English. So I'm going to ask the question again. How is the DA?
Why am I giving you big English?
You're not answering the question. You're giving me big English. You're saying very fancy, nice things, but you're not answering the question. How is the DA ensuring a racially equal South Africa? That was the question.
Well, when I led the DA between 1994, well, the DP, and then until 2007, that was the goal. It was very contested because every time we did something, we were accused of trying to bring back apartheid. How the DA has dealt with that since 2007, you'd have to ask people who lead the DA today, not me. But once again, from my outside observation, and obviously I am sympathetic to the party that I actually was the founding leader of, but I'm not involved in its management or leadership, I think they do have a diverse slate of candidates. I think they have a multiracial outlook, and I think they have non-racial policies. Whether people respond to that or vote on other grounds, I can't say 20 days before the election, but I will give you an answer on the 21st day when the results come in.
All right. It seems all too convenient for you to disassociate yourself on the basis that you're now an elder of the DA.
Well, I don't know. I'm an elder.
All too convenient, Tony.
But it's a matter of fact. I don't hold any office. I'm not seeking any office. I'm not in the leadership or management structures of the DA. That's a fact. Or what I think and where my sympathies are, I haven't disguised either, because I've made those very clear during our interview. So I don't quite understand what the presumption is or the question.
All right. So on the 1st of May, you wrote a piece of 30 years of democracy where you say former Presidents Thabo Mbeki, Jacob Zuma, and current President Cyril Ramaphosa all have something to answer for what has transpired over the 30 years of democracy. So my question to you is, what are you referring to here in this regard? And does the DA have anything to answer to for in a similar vein, or is it your opinion that the DA has been a model of leadership and governance in the country?
No, of course the DA has made many mistakes. It's got many faults that you know about. It's probably got many that you don't know about. And it's an organization peopled by human beings who make mistakes. I just think the record where the DA governs is incontestably better than areas where the ANC governs. That's not my subjective opinion. Every measurement and statistic we have suggests that is so. Now, could the DA have done things differently or better? Of course. But in the main, the party has stood up for constitutionalism. It's gone to court to enforce constitutional rights, not just for itself, but for a lot of public institutions, which wouldn't have come to light if the DA hadn't taken action. And generally, not entirely, I'm sure, where it governs, it doesn't steal the money and it does deliver services better than in other parts of the country. So it has a record to run on, and it's been built up over the last 24 years that the DA has been in existence. Should the DA, be a bigger, broader party? Of course. And I guess what the DA is hoping to do in this election, and we'll only know, as I say, on the 30th of May when the results come in, is that it does become a bigger, broader, more representative party than just being a minority party.
I don't know about all of that, Tony. I don't know about all of that, Tony. I mean, level with me here. On what basis?
I am leveling with you.
On what basis?
I've not evaded a single question that you've asked me.
And I appreciate that very much. But what do you base that response on, considering the plight of black and colored people in the city and the province governed by the DA?
Well, let's just segment that. I'm not the mayor or the premier, but I understand from what the mayor and the premier have said that the DA more effectively redistributes resources and rates and taxes to poorer areas than it does in richer areas. There's a vast backlog of infrastructure, but the DA administration, as I understand in Cape Town, is spending more on infrastructure than any other metro or province in this country. And the bulk of that infrastructural spending is directed towards poorer communities. And if you're going to segment them into colored and African, well, coloreds very significantly by a clear majority in every election over the last 10 or 15 years have voted for the DA in preference to every other party. Among black Africans in the Western Cape, that has not been the case. Whether the DA improves its performance there, once again, we'll see on the 30th of May.
We'll have to wait and see. But before I let you go, I'm not sure that I agree with the bulk of spending on poorer communities, especially considering the current...
Well, look, you must get the mayor and the premier.
No, that's fine. I'm not posing the question to you, but I'm just saying I don't believe that at all, because we have statistics that prove that the Western Cape townships are not doing as well as the affluent suburbs. But in closing, to be fair to you, you're not the mayor, understood, but you're the elder of the DA. You're the elder.
I don't know what this. There's no such title in the DA as an elder, except I suppose by the affliction of age.
I'm giving you the title. So, as an elder, what's your opinion of the current DA leader, John Steenhuisen? Do you think he's been able to move the party forward from your days in office? I mean, do you think Steenhuisen has it in him to do what you or Helen Zille never could, which is to dislodge the ANC from power?
Well, once again, you know, and I'm not being evasive at all, we'll see soon enough. I certainly think the ANC is at its lowest point than it's at this, once again, according to the polls. We haven't seen the real poll, these opinion polls, than it's ever been. Whether John Steenhuisen and the DA leadership can capitalize on that, we'll know soon enough. But, you know, I need to say when I took over the Democratic Party leadership, it was a 1.7% party. When I left, it was a 12, I think, 0.5% party. So it grew very significantly in a decade. And then it's almost doubled that support now. But the great question, and you've asked it, is where does it go from here? And the voters are going to tell us that very soon.
Let's wait for the polls on the 29th of May. That is the former leader of the DA, Tony Leon.